Welcome to the podcast, Working Drummer. Dynamic interviews that tell you everything you need to know about being a professional drummer and a few things you may not want to know. Produced by Mike Jackson and hosted by myself, Matthew Krause. I want to go back to something that you said before. You said, never have I been, when you hear a recording, like, I'm so proud of this performance, this mix, this vocal, blah, 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 blah. Because I've struggled with that. It's so hard, and we've talked about this before, so I don't want to get too far into it, but I want to get your perspective on it, is sometimes when you do a session, you do a recording, you have to kind of let go as the drummer. And even, I did a recording last year with the band Savannah Jack, and the singer and I got into it one day, and I was like, man, I did this overdub, I did this percussion loop, and it's not in there, and it's in the second verse. Why would it be in the second verse and not in the first? It makes no sense. And he's like, look, every drummer I work with, and he's worked with Eddie Bears, he's worked with all these different people, and Lonnie Wilson, he's like, you come in and you play, and then you leave it up to there was no producer, but they were producing it themselves. Right. And I'm the hired gun. I'm not in the band. Mm-hmm. But I've been with the band, I feel like, but this is my name on the credits. I want it to be the best it can be to represent me at the finest. Right. But
it's not about you.
It is. Right.
Isn't that crazy?
And I had a hard time letting that go.
Yeah. Yeah, so, obviously I'm very proud of the Jason Aldean records, and you can hear a growth in not only the musicianship, but creating a sound or a brand along the way. And we're about to start our 7th record, what I mean? And the stuff sounds unique. I mean, it's like everything is cut so digitally and in the same fashion in Nashville. So to have something that was everybody tracking at the same flow on the same time on the floor in an old studio with a lot of vintage microphones through radar. It just sounds different, It just sounds great. So I'm proud of that stuff. But a lot of the hired gun stuff, you don't have a lot of control over, and sometimes you just have to go, I played drums. I did the best I could possibly do for this given person. Yeah. They cut me a check. What's next?
Yeah. But, how do you deal with, have you ever gotten back a recording like, nothing's even lined up. This makes me sound... it's like when I listen to the playback after that one take, everything was lined. It felt great. It was this, but they're using maybe a different take, a different bass line for the drums, and it's like, what? It's like, this doesn't... How do I let this out? How do people know? Yeah. I feel like for a lot of players out there that it's like you have a large body of work that stands on its own, so that if something slips through and it's like, well, this is a demo that Rich Redmond played on, it's like, okay, but man, he has all these other recordings and I've seen him live. It's like, that doesn't sound like him. There must be something.
Too Frankenstein, yeah. Sometimes you can over Frankenstein's things. And,
Yeah.
But still, that's why producing is great. And you know how you become a producer? You just start producing. You know how to become an actor? You just start acting. You know how to become an author? You write a freaking book. It's like there's a million reasons to not do something, and you just do it. You just do it, and then the universe shifts.
Yeah.
And then it makes it even easier for you to do other things. So it's like I've got a lot of other ideas for books. I did the acting thing, and now I'm meeting more people that are like, oh, yeah, I heard about that. I want to help you get another role here in this thing or that thing. Yeah. Or, once people start to hear, you on tape, they go, oh, man, that sounds really good. And, hey, my friend said that he had a really good time working with you, which is huge. Almost even more important than the final product is the process. Yeah. Do people enjoy the process with you? Yes. Yeah. But it's all fun.
Yeah,
it's all great.
Well, again, I think that's what I was trying to get at. Is 2 or 3 questions ago is what is it that motivates you to want to have your just all these plates spinning? Yeah. Even outside of drums. There's music, but it's funny when I heard about you going out and doing this acting. It just didn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to hear. I think that if you have a lot of things going on at the same time, if 1 or 2 of them fall through the cracks, you still have all these other businesses that are running because you got to eat. You know what I mean? And they're things that I've branded that they're creative processes, all related to music and the entertainment industry. So Playing on the road, super fun. Playing sessions, super fun. Producing, super fun. Writing books, writing articles, great. I can do that while I'm on the road. Like I'm just keep it all going.
Yeah.
It's just all going. It's all drums, it's all music, it's all creativity. And they're all fun, and they all provide a portion of my income. Like I have my setup at my house. Some guys make a full-time living. Like, my friend Tony Morrow was the first guy in Nashville to create a recording studio from his home, and he has a world-class recording studio with world-class gear. He's converted his garage, the downtown Battery. I don't know if you've ever been over there, but
no.
Tony Morrow is this amazing drummer, and he gets a world-class ocean wave style drum sound from his house.
Awesome.
And so he makes his entire, 90% of his living is going down in his pajamas and a cup of coffee and cranking out tracks for people.
Jeez.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
So I have that set up. I don't get sounds as good as Tony's, but I know that people are hiring me for my performance anyway. So
right.
I have Pro Tools 10. I have great microphones. The room is treated. I have a DW drum set all ready to go. People can send me files, and I'm in that game as well. So as I see Music Row shifting and condos being put up and recording studios are closing, it's going to be, you're going to have to, once again, take the bull by the horn. You know what I mean? This room that we're sitting in, you could treat the room, put your drums in here, mic everything up. You can have a little station so you can engineer yourself. And then before you know it, you're playing music for people. I've sent tracks to Newfoundland, Germany, South America, Japan.
Yeah.
It recorded in my 500 square foot studio.
Yeah.
In my house.
Right.
So the games have changed because the technology is there.
Yes.
So some people have the 100% or 90% of their income coming from that revenue stream. Steve Brewster plays on nearly every Christian record here in Nashville. So if you go to Lifeway Christian Store, you're going to see Steve Brewster's name on the credits, and he has this, again, world-class facility with 30. He has 30-foot ceilings in a room in his house.
Wow.
And he gets world-class drum sounds, and he runs his business, makes all his money from his house. So I'm just in a position where I've created opportunities for myself where my touring gig is the basis for everything. And then from around that, I'm fortunate enough to know my schedule almost a year in advance, which is a real luxury because there's a lot of acts that are like, what are you doing next month? I don't know.
Right.
I get a schedule and I go, wow, so this is my broad stroke. This is my palette. What else? How can I do? Oh, I'm going to be in this city on this Wednesday. Okay, I'm either going to do something during the day on that Wednesday, or if there's somebody that wants to bring me in the night before, they only have to pay for a one-way ticket because I'm going to meet the band on Wednesday. So then the client says, why don't you do a motivational event on Tuesday night for our employees? And then they put me up at the Hampton Inn, and then I meet the band the next day for the gig. And I'll do the same thing on the back end of the run where, I only have to get back to Nashville. So I can stay on the last city on a run for a client, and it's just, I don't know. It's just.
Well, let's talk about your crash course for success. And I know you've covered that before. So maybe quickly talk about kind of what that's been.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about how that has evolved.
It's a Starbucks shaker, guys. It's coming next. I have a meeting with the head of marketing. There'll be a sugar-free version and a full-fat sugar version. Like CR.A.S.H is like a mantra for living. Yeah. And I developed it in like 2007 or something like that. And it stands for commitment. It's an acronym. Stands for commitment, relationships, attitude, skill, and hunger. 5 things that anybody from any walk of life can use to be.
Did you ever think about, I'm going to make an acronym out of drum or tom or snare? C.R.A.S.H, you're looking around.
You have C.R.A.S.H. I have a great friend of mine who's also another motivational speaker, and he's like, man, you just need an angle. He said, you're doing a lot of drum clinics, and drum clinics are great, but it's kind of a format that, like, for 30 years would be drummer comes in limo, sits behind drums, does 90-minute drum solo, takes a few questions, is out the back door. And I wanted to offer something that was educational, inspirational, and informative and entertaining. So, I always have some sort of a takeaway that kids can go, oh, this is the things that Rich taught me during his event, and they can take that home with them. Yeah. Or some sort of a poster they can hang on their practice wall. And then then I'm very methodical in the sense that the format of my events is I talk about commitment, how I applied it in my life, and then I'll play a song that they've heard on the radio, and they see how that I've applied commitment. And then I talk about relationships in my life and how I've never, one of the themes is I've never gotten a job from an audition. I mean, Pam Tillis was the only job I ever got from an audition, and somebody actually kind of like wet the whistle before me. The drummer that was leaving was like, Pam, you can have your audition, but I think you should hire Rich. And so they listened to 30 drummers, and I still got the gig because there's, so the guy called ahead and said, this is probably the guy you're going to want. Then I talk about attitude, and I play a song. And so it's a talk, play format. So no, it's constantly moving, it's high energy, and no one gets bored, hopefully. And then even the parents or the cousins or brothers, whoever takes the kid to the event can get something. They can get something out of it as well, which has led to corporate work with like Cisco. They run the internet.
That's what I want to ask about. Okay, so these are drum clinics, but more than just drums that you're bringing to the table to kind of differentiate yourself from what other clinicians are doing.
Yeah,
but what this has evolved into, there's a corporate event. What you just had the Hershey Park.
Hershey Park. So I talked to like 75 of their actors, jugglers, musicians that work at the theme park. And a good friend of mine that plays drums with Chubby Checker and writes all the music for the park brought me in and said, can you talk to my performers at Hershey Park and just inspire them to be the best that they can be? Because when you do the same show sometimes 3 times a day, 5 days a week in the summer, you can start just kind of mailing it in.
Right.
And I was like, you can't do that, because what if there's some sort of a talent scout or something that comes and they see you mailing it in, and here you are, Mr. Hershey is paying you good money to perform. Yeah. So it was really fun. When I do educational things for like McGavick High School, I had 1,000 kids at McGavick High School, and I was like, do you realize you're in your final year of school? You're a 12th grader, and it's going to get really real here pretty soon, because you're going to have to pay for a car, gas, cell phone, health insurance, food, lodging, gas, entertainment. You got to get a job. You're not going to be able to. What are you going to do? Are you joining the military? Are you going to college? Are you going to work a job? What do you really want to do with your life? I mean, I start asking these questions, and light bulbs are going off, and they're like, my God, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I go, well, this is what I wanted to do. I decided, like in 1983, when Synchronicity came out, that I was going to be a professional drummer. And I picked people's brains, and I created opportunities for myself, and I worked hard, and I put in those 12,000 hours, and it was come hell or high water, I was going to make this happen.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of try to share that message with them, and they go, if 2 out of the 1,000 kids get it, it clicks, then it was worth my time.
Right, but also you're talking to people, grown-ups in different corporate events,
high-achieving people.
Yeah,
and the thing there is, when I talk to high-achieving leaders, people that are driving the Bentleys that have jets, and they go, why would I want to listen to a drummer that drives a Honda Element? Because I tell them the commonalities between my business, which is the music business, is laughably difficult to become high-achieving in. And they see the commonalities of the commitment and the relationships and the attitude and the parallels between those two things, and it's just a different way of looking at it. So it helps them say, "Oh my God, I'm going to take that."
Yeah.
Like there's a high level guy, he's a friend now that works at Cisco. He's a leader, and I talked to him about the commitment of counting off a song.
Yeah, yeah.
That commitment, as soon as you click those sticks together, 1. And I'm shocked. I said, look, there's 60,000 people. They have paid their hard-earned money. The band, they can't hear me over the din of the crowd. I'm 1, 2. No, commitment. Show me 1, 2. And I have them come up, and somebody from the audience, I said, sit down here. This is where the king sits. This is where the drummer, the most important person in the band.
You bring somebody from the audience to sit them.
They don't know how to play the drums.
Yeah. And a lot of them probably haven't been on stage, like, wow. A stage.
And no, ever. And they've got this beautiful set of drums, and so I get them, and so they see, really, that I am a businessman. I am an entrepreneur. I am a hard worker. I have a work ethic. I had a plan, and then I followed through, and I executed it, and I am in sales. Because so it's just so easy to talk to salespeople, because I'm in sales. I'm a rhythm salesman. So there's so many commonalities between music and business.
Yeah.
And education. I'm not going to see my wife for a month.
How do you do it, man?
Dude, really hard. It's really hard.
Does she travel too?
FaceTime.
Yeah.
She travels, yeah. So if she's not in Nashville, she's in New York, or she's in LA, or she's going to Singapore, or she's going to Bali, or Europe. She, so, and it's she comes back with like souvenirs for me, or like she goes to Holland, and I come back with some cool like wooden slippers or something.
Yeah.
It's just fun, and
she's like, "What did you get me?" Oh,
I got you. I said, when you
here's
go to
some
Singapore,
swag, honey.
When you go to Singapore, get me a gong. I want one of those little gongs, like It is not a normal.
The little gong sound. That's exactly what.
It's not a normal marriage. I mean, it's not like Cosmopolitan or like like Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, it's where there's a high level commitment, and to each other. But it's just you have to get used to trusting someone and loving someone, and they're not physically there all the time.
Yeah. How did you guys meet? You seem like you're from... Because that is so funny. Here's the thing. Here's the image I have in my mind. Again, 4 years ago, I'm walking into my Starbucks, which is your Starbucks. I look down. I see like this blur. It's you tapping on the table to whatever's being played on the... And your wife's sitting there with just like a cup of tea, just calmly just sitting there. And it's like...
She's zen and I'm insane.
It's the yin and yang.
Yeah.
How'd you guys meet?
I met Cindy at Quad Recording Studios. I was her session drummer because she was a circuit singer on the East Coast for like 7 years. She was in like a circuit band, like a funk band.
Oh, cool.
So my wife is like white soul all the way. Great, really great singer. And so I was her session drummer. Sparks flew. This was like 2007, and then she moved. No, 2005. Oh my God, I met her in 2005, and then she moved to Nashville in 2007, and we sparked up a romance, and we got married in 2009.
Wow.
And since then, she has been A+ science student. She has been a celebrity hairdresser, and she has now become a full-time psychic medium that tours the world.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah, she's a Renaissance woman. Oh, and she paints. She does spirit art. So like she'll basically she has no artistic training. She will just have a blank canvas, and 30 minutes later there will be this amazing acrylic expressionistic thing that you can see like thousands of faces in.
Wow.
But you pull it, but you have to look back and like, oh yeah, there's a face, there's a face, there's a face. Neat. Yeah. And then it also works upside down. You could turn it upside down and you could still see. It's bizarre. This is a girl who she couldn't trace. Like, like in the back of the TV guide, they're like, trace this turtle. Like she couldn't do it. And now she's like, yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
I feel like a real simpleton around her.
She brings you down.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, balance is hard. There's like not a whole lot of balance in our lives. I think it's just that's a tough thing. It's hard to achieve high level things if you're always balancing. You know what I mean? It's just really hard. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, you ever heard of that guy? He had wrote a book called Crush It, and he crushes it. He's like a very high achieving guy, but there's no balance in his life. I mean, he's just always working.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you mean by that? I mean, like, does he not have a family? Does he not?
I don't think he has a family.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing good holding on to a sexy wife. I mean, I'm doing good there.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I don't know how you guys do it with the kids.
Yeah.
That is, man. But at the same time, you will have someone to dress your wounds in the hospital and change your colostomy bag. And I will be by myself, probably in East Nashville, whittling soap.
You never know. If I accidentally shard myself when I'm hanging out, then
I've got to change my own colostomy bag. But no, kids are amazing. I mean, the thing with me is I get to affect a lot of kids in a positive way by being a teacher. But then
you do. You're around.
But then I don't have to.
Your drum tech as a kid.
My drum tech could be my son. John is turning 24 today.
He looks 19.
So I treat him. It's really funny. Like, I have a life coach, and so I go to my life coach, and she says, what's really important in your life is that you like to be a fixer, and you like to be a nurturer, and you like to help people.
Yeah.
So that's what I do with John. I kind of treat him like a son. I'm like, it's a bad decision, or don't do this, or I give him advice because he's the only guy around at that age in that role that I can give advice to like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Well, and it's funny. I think you fulfill that role as like as a nurturer, maybe to other people, and there are people that don't have kids that satisfies. I've always wanted kids ever since when I was a kid. You know, it's like so. That's what made Nashville an obvious choice. I met my wife in Ohio, and we moved down here. And it's just like it's that balancing that again.
You can have dirt here, man. You can't buy dirt.
It's that
you can't buy dirt in New York.
No. Have a domestic life and music at the same time.
Yeah, no,
it's very hard, but it can be done.
You're totally doing it. 10 years in a touring band, and what the people aren't seeing is that next door there's a room filled with 10,000 pounds of Legos for your kids. Right. It's amazing.
That's my retirement right there because I'm going to sell those. You have a reputation for high energy, very high level of motivation. Has there ever been a time when you've had self-doubt in your professional life? I think in personal life, we've all struggled with that. Maybe failed relationships or different things that have happened to us or things that we struggle with.
The late 90s, like when you and I moved to town, like I moved here in 97.
Yeah.
And like I said, I moved here, gave my band 2 weeks notice, and I moved here with no money saved. Like I was just so full of piss and vinegar. I just was like, here I am, Nashville. I know you've been waiting for me. I mean, and it's just like in Nashville, man, they don't care what kind of track record you come with. You've got to pay your dues and serve time in the trenches. Mm-hmm. And some people's trenches are longer than others. They call it a 5-year town. Like 5 years of hitting the trenches and working hard before you can create enough of relationships where you can make living full time. It's kind of about that. It might be. Maybe it's 7. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's getting more difficult. It may
vary, but just as the town is changing.
You know, but I do know that there's a lot of kids that are moving to town. They say, no, I'm not going to do Lower Broadway. I'm going to focus on this, this, and this. And they get a gig right away. And I'm like, wow, why wasn't it like that for me? Like the first 3 years in town were difficult because here I am. I had my master's degree. I had a lot of experience. I had a positive attitude about things. And here I'm like, God, I'm working a day job. How come I can't make music full time? When am I going to get one of these high level marquee gigs? And for me, it was just like, you just got to be patient. You got to be patient. So when you're playing into the clubs till 3 in the morning and you get home at 4, and then you got to go grab your briefcase and go teach kids at 7 in the morning. That was very, very draining, and like seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. But those 3 years, 97, 98, 99, I played every club in Nashville. I did endless showcases. I did free demos. I did auditions in people's basements. I would go in the van and trailer gigs and, do 5 sets a night and stay in the band houses. I took everything, private, wedding gigs, corporate gigs, until you start meeting people. And this was all pre-social media. I think social media, if you're doing the right thing in your life and it helps you connect the dots on a daily basis, people are seeing your avatar. They're seeing like, oh yeah, I remember meeting that guy. Right. And what is he doing today? Like the whole concept that work begets work. It's very easy to let people see that you're constantly in
so are you saying that social media is becoming a good way?
I mean, it's a game changer.
Well, it is a game changer for sure. Yeah. But back in the day, there was a time when you had to be seen, or you just didn't exist.
Which is a great philosophy, because if you're new to Nashville, or Los Angeles, or New York,
you can't just rely on social media.
You got to physically get out and shake hands, and go to those jam sessions, and go to those open mics, and in Nashville, the songwriter rules the town. As far as the pyramid in Nashville, the songwriters are creating the intellectual property of that, all that stuff you hear on the radio, and then the producer is even under that. He's using that songwriter's song to create a product, and then there's the studio musicians, and there's road musicians, and and it is a great time though in Nashville, I feel, because I think starting as almost 10 years ago, Jason Aldean, Brad Paisley, all these different people were using their road bands on recordings. So when we moved here in 97, it was like, you're a studio musician or you're a road musician. There's no way you can do both, because if you're traveling on the road, you couldn't keep those accounts. And the music business was so healthy that Eddie Bears and Paul Limes and these guys were doing triple sessions. They were doing 10 to 1, 2 to 5, 6 to 9, every single day.
Yeah.
And that is a grind. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did that 5 days a week, 3 sessions a day because it literally gives you almost no time to do things like go to the bank, eat a lunch.
Oh, I know.
Do anything.
Yeah.
And if you're going to get a workout in or see your kids or whatever, you got to do it at like 5:30 in the morning because you're getting drum sounds at 9:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then you have to go to your next session, which might be at a different studio, and say their first session goes to 1:15, and you're munching on a power bar, and you got to get to the other thing and get drum sounds at 2:40, at 1:45.
To bring up Tommy again, that day when I was hanging out with him, I said, "Man, what about when you have to go from session to session?" He said, I always pack a lunch.
Pack a lunch, yeah.
And sometimes I don't have to use it. I don't have to dip into it. I can, go out and we can hang out or do this or whatever. But I always have it with me just in case.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than being like just starving.
Yeah.
A lot more options now in Nashville, though. We got vegan restaurants and sushi and juice bars.
There was just Calypso Cafe. And
Calypso Cafe, to you people that are going to move to Nashville, is a life-changing place because it's healthy food on the cheap.
It is. Yeah, it's won numerous awards. It's so good.